Hi there. I'm Matt Vanacoro with my friends at Wavesfactory, and today we're diving into body percussion. Body percussion is a collection of percussion samples created with the human body, and it can give you a range of tones from a simple background pattern to huge crowd performances. Now, body percussion runs in Kontakt 5.7.3 or higher, and you'll see I've got it loaded up right here. Let's take a look. The main screen of body percussion is a grid format, and it allows you to see the samples that you're triggering when you play notes. Every time you play a note, it will pop up. So it's easy to see when you're playing a larger sequence, as you just saw, which sample is playing when. The notes that are playable are clearly marked at the bottom in color-coded regions, and there are double notes for many of the samples so that you can play some faster patterns. And with the round robin, you won't get that machine gun effect. You're going to hear different samples each time. The player selector knob right here allows you to ratchet up how many people are making the percussive sound you're listening to. So if I play right here, you'll hear that belly sound. But as I ratchet up the mod wheel, you'll see the player's knob move up and start to include higher amounts of players. That's how I was able to go from small to big fairly quickly in that intro example. Now, let's take a look at the way this instrument is recorded so you can match it to any project you want. I'll open up the mixer. I've got a close mic, a mid mic, and a far mic. So when you click on these buttons up top, you can unload the samples from any one of those mics. So if I want to hear just the close samples, ha, 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 there we go. And if I want to hear just the far samples, ha, 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 and you can see in the memory the difference in memory when I load up other sets of samples. So it's a great way to manage your resources. You can, of course, pan any of these microphones from left to right. So if you really want to spread things out and simulate a specific room, you can do so. You can control the volume of each mic. So if you do want to have some of the far in there, but you don't want it to seem quite so far away, so you're going for a close-up recording but not a completely dead room, you can adjust the mics independently and get the sound that you're looking for. Of course, we've got a stereo width adjustment down at the bottom that you can adjust on each set of the mics. And you also have control over the outputs. So if you're setting up multi-outputs and you want to be able to have more control in your final mix, you can do that as well. Taking a look at the effects page, the middle tab, you can see that there is a robust effects system, and it's really interestingly put together. You can put effects on the individual microphones, but also on the master channel. So if you want to have a certain effect, a delay or something on the close mic, but then you want to have different effects on the entire mix, you can do so. So anything I put on master is going to show up for the entire mix. If I click in this first slot and I turn on, say, a flanger, you'll hear a nice little flanger sound that can be enabled or disabled with the click of a mouse. Now, if I go to the close mics, you'll see that the master one doesn't show up there. So it is affecting the close mics, but the close mic can have a completely different effects chain that it hits before it gets to the master effect chain. So that's really neat. You've got really total flexibility in crafting your mix. And if you don't like an effect, you can get rid of it completely by just clicking on the little X right there. Let's take a look at the settings page. So from here, you can adjust the round robin. This will allow you to manage your resources and also to not have such diversion in the samples if that's not what you want. So the round robin is what allows you to have different sounding samples. Every human clap or stomp or snap should have a little variance to it because you won't do it the same exact way twice. So you can hear there's a lot of variance even though I'm hitting the same sound over and over again. Now, if I take this round robin out all the way down to 1, you'll save a ton of memory. You'll see we're only at 168 megabytes now, but the sample is exactly the same every time. So if I start adding them in, round robins, you'll hear different samples. So with only 2, for example, let's get just 2. You'll hear it alternate between the 2 different sounds. But if I put in 10, you've got a real diversion in the way that it plays. And it really simulates it being much more human, much more realistic. The dynamic range controls how loud or soft those samples are going to be able to get. So as I ratchet that down, I can keep it very small. where I'm close to the full dynamic range the whole time, or turn it up to allow for some softer articulations. Now, married to that a bit is the velocity curve. And this is great for compensating if your MIDI controller is a bit reactive in a way that you don't want it to be. So when I'm playing on different keyboards, sometimes I get to those upper velocity samples a little sooner than I'd like to. So I can adjust the curve of the velocity to allow it to favor the lower samples a little longer if I don't want to get there quite so quickly. And I really have to hit it harder in order to get those louder samples. Or I can do the opposite, have it favor the louder samples. So whatever you need to do to adjust it to tailor to your MIDI controller, you can. And you can even restrict and do a minimum sample value. So if you want to make sure you're always in the upper samples and you're not ever hitting the quieter ones, or vice versa, if you don't ever want to get to those upper samples, you've got the flexibility to adjust that in your velocity curve. The start offset will allow you to adjust the starting point of when the sample plays. And this is great for some of the more percussive samples if you want to take some of that percussive element out of it. So I've got that, swipe sound, but I've got this snap sound that's very percussive right away. And if I want to just take some of the bite off of it, I can lose that initial attack if I want to. So that's a nice little customization. The amount of players randomness. This is super fun. So you heard before when I ratcheted in that player knob nice and high, right? Let's open it up. Let's bring it up. We'll do a bunch of players. Slapping their thighs. Now, if I go to the settings and I adjust the randomness, those players are really tight now. They're all playing at pretty much the same exact time. But if I adjust the randomness, it's not going to be as tight. A little looser. And if I go all the way, so you can control how much randomness is in when those additional players play. So you can, again, simulate a real group versus a big crowd of people that maybe aren't all professional musicians with a great sense of time. But it's wonderful because when you're doing your sound design, you know your song, you know how tight you want it to sound, you know how loose you want it to sound, and you might want to bring in an element of realism to it. So adjusting that randomness can be really helpful. Finally, you got the articulation control, and I love this. You can adjust all of the articulations, or you can adjust individual ones. So let's say I'm doing a pattern. Okay, I'm just going to play a pattern here for a second. Let me repeat one for you, get one going on repeat. And if you listen, it's a cool pattern, but I can adjust the pitch of everything in the pattern by adjusting the articulation control. Let's try it. There we go. Now, what if I don't want to adjust the pitch of everything, though? I can go in and adjust individual articulation. So what I'll do is I'll use that handy grid to see what articulations are playing. So snaps, stomps, and hand sweeps. Let's say I want that stomp to be lower. So I'll go to stomp floor, and now I'm going to adjust the pitch of just the stomp. Bring it up high, bring it down low. I can adjust the volume of it. So anytime it plays, it's a little louder. And I can adjust the pan of it so that it occurs just on one side. So now you really hear that stomp loud, low, and in the left earphone. And that can help you create this really, really great big surround sort of sound field. So if I go to heel floor and put that on the other side, let me see, let's find that heel floor. Let's put that on the right side, lower the pitch, and why not, while we're in there, let's do the single snaps and change that to be slightly to the left. So single snap, let's pan that a little to the left. So now check out that sound field. I've really crafted a large surround setup so that you can hear all these players around you. And I've changed the pitch of some of the articulations, and I've changed the volume of some of them. And you can do that individually, or you can change all of them. So it's a lot of control with body percussion to create a sound field and patterns that really work for you. And it's a great library. Check it out now from my friends at Wavesfactory.